Thanks very much. What I'll do is to briefly zoom in just a little bit here on laptops. We heard a number of things already about different vectors for attack. So you have network vectors, hackers and crackers that break into systems remotely. You've got mail fraud and all kinds of different ways to steal information. I'm going to focus just a little bit here briefly on laptop computers because that's kind of what we specialize in. This is not going to be an official question here, but have you seen The Bourne Identity with Jason Bourne, played by a fellow whose name is escaping me at the particular moment? Yes, Matt Damon. There's a scene where he says he's starting to come to, starting to realize that he's got abilities that he can't really explain. So if you've seen this movie, he's sitting there with the lady in the cafe, and he says, "Why do I know that man over there is 6'4", 220 pounds, and handles himself pretty well? The most likely place to find a firearm is in that gray truck outside, and I know the license plates of all 10 vehicles that are parked up front," or something along those lines. Can't figure out why he knows all this. Well, when you get into the laptop business or laptop protection business, you find yourself going into Starbucks, and you don't look at the menu because you know what you want. You say to yourself, "Why do I know that there are 14 laptops within 10 feet of me right now, and none of them are marked?" So I'm going to talk a little bit about some statistics that we've come to gather. We've aggregated some studies, and we already saw a lot of statistics that were given by Robert with respect to data breaches, and some of them did touch on laptop theft. There will be 2.6 million laptop thefts in 2008 alone. That number is projected from year-over-year gains going back to 2003, when we actually broke the 1 million mark in 2003. There are 50% gains every year. We estimate it conservatively and back the number off to 25% gain every year. You still come up with about 2.6 million laptop thefts in 2008, which we're about finished with. That's one theft every 12 seconds. So the problem is pretty significant from a frequency standpoint. In 2006, the Ponemon Institute, this is a group that does a lot of studies on data breaches, laptop security, and data security. They did a study that surveyed 480 government agencies. I'm not going to comment too much on this, but just to say that's what the study was. 480 government agencies, and they found that 80% had, which was like industry, by the way, the statistic that Robert already quoted, 80% had lost data via laptop theft in the last year. 10% had no idea whether they had or whether they hadn't. They just didn't know. And then 10%, that's 10 out of 100, were able to say that they had not lost information via laptop theft in the last year. In 2007, the next study produced by the Ponemon Institute along with Redemtech revealed that 73% of corporations experienced theft and loss of a data-bearing asset in the last 2 years, and actually that number was up to 80, like I just mentioned a minute ago, even in the corporate world. Yet the same organizations reported very limited efforts to secure the data-bearing assets. So what gets most of what's a little bit more sexy is the network. So we want to protect from hackers all over the world breaking into our network remotely, which is a good thing to protect against. But oftentimes, securing data-bearing assets kind of gets a little bit lower on the totem pole and doesn't really get addressed. Now, that is changing, I can say thankfully. That's changing because of headlines like what were quoted earlier. Baylor Health, for example, is installing laptop tracking and remote data erasure tools on their laptops, and they did it just a little bit too late from their most recent theft. 62% of the companies confirmed or are unsure if their off-network equipment actually bears data or of a sensitive or confidential manner. And yet 39% do not view the management of off-network, meaning things like laptops that aren't necessarily servers or things stored on the network. They may connect to the network and they disconnect. They weren't sure if it had information on it, and they didn't view it as important. I think that's going to be changing significantly as well. 70% of data breaches occurred from off-network equipment. So the problem is not really, it's not always anyway, and it's usually not sitting in the server room. The problem is sitting in here. Anybody count how many laptops are in this room already? I did.